All right, it's 6:05. There might be some people trickling in as I start, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you all to our second Near Eastside Virtual Summit of 2021. And as was just mentioned, another Zoom thing to do for today. But I will say that you all could have done plenty of other things, but you decided to spend this time here with me, and I appreciate that. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is Rainey Grant. I am the Near Eastside Community Builder. And my email is there at the bottom of the slide. Oh, I don't know what just happened. Okay. So today, we just did a welcome introduction. I'm going to go through the benchmarking report, which is a compilation of 9 community action team surveys that are tailored to each of the community action teams and each of the quality of life areas that those teams service, as well as the 10th survey that was created for the quality of life lead agencies. And then we'll have a short break for 5 minutes, and then we'll do the community action team breakout sessions. It is not a planning session like the last time. I got a lot of feedback from people saying they wanted more time to spend with their neighbors and be a little more social. So I have some more general prompts for those sessions to keep it a little more informal and one second. Keep it a little more informal and get to know your neighbors better, as well as discussing the community action team and what it has done and what it will do in the future. And then after that, we'll have report outs, which were also suggested so that everybody can learn about what all the other teams have discussed in those sessions. And then we'll have the neighbor wins time, since we didn't focus so much on what the neighbors' successes and wins were for 2020. We'll focus on neighbors. All right. Are there any general questions, comments, concerns before I get started? Great. I can't see you all, but I'm going to assume no. So the Community Action Team Benchmarking Survey has all the same questions for all of the community action teams, but each survey has the different action items and priorities of each section. So I list here all of the questions that are listed in the survey, and I'll just run through them real quick. So number 1, who is responding to this survey? Please list the members of your CAT, Community Action Team. Please indicate the priority or priorities you have chosen to focus on in Q1, which is January through March of 2021. Please indicate which action items within this priority you have chosen to focus on in Q1. Please indicate the stage of progress for your action items. Which implementation or supporting partners have you engaged in Q1 of 2021? Which action items have they helped with? Which community action teams did your community action team collaborate with during 2021? Has your community action team received any grants or funding resources for action item implementation in 2021? If yes, who granted the funding resources, what amount, and what will the funds be used for? Please share anything else your community action team has done in Q1. For example, wins, successful partnerships, quotes from CAT members or Near Eastside residents, etc. If you would like to share any documents or photos, please submit them here. And do you have any feedback regarding the implementation process of the Near Eastside Quality of Life Plan, or any feedback about this survey? I created these surveys to be as comprehensive as possible while also being as accessible and easy as possible, because I know that partner reported data is something that is often very difficult to get. Everybody is busy, everybody is doing their things. And so I tried to make it as easy as possible. If you click no on one of the questions, or if you don't click on a priority, you don't see any of the follow-up questions for that. It was very difficult on my end. It was the first time I worked with Qualtrics, but I think it worked the best for the respondents for the surveys. Are there any questions about these? Great. So we'll go ahead and get into the data. This data is not completely comprehensive. There was a time limit that I imposed on everybody to get these responses in. And I'm sure that many of these community action teams are doing work that isn't captured necessarily in this reporting, but I think that's the nature of reporting. We can't capture everything. But I did create these benchmarking surveys in the benchmarking report to replace Insight Vision reporting, which was not necessarily capturing any of aspects of the quality of life plan. So this is specifically tailored to be a sustainable reporting method for this quality of life plan. And then I'll also preface to say that if you're not seeing responses to some of the questions that I just listed in these sections, it's because there were not responses for those questions. Either the response was not applicable or none. And then I also did not receive responses from the Economic and Workforce Development CAT, the Education CAT, the Housing CAT, and the Placemaking and Infrastructure CATs. And if you are a member of those CATs, or if you are a lead agency point of contact for one of those CATs, I ask you to please fill out the survey still, so I can get as comprehensive data as possible for the report. Even if you say no to all of the questions, at least there will be consistency in the reporting. And I have a baseline foundation for the reporting. So let's go ahead and get into these responses. So for the Arts and Culture CAT, we had for the Arts and Culture CAT, you can see the charts here, and they are this is exactly how it looks in the survey. So once you indicate the certain priority you focused on within your area, and then you indicate which action items within that priority, it'll pop up with a section that will ask for the stages of progress. And this is what that looks like, except it'll have radio buttons instead of the check marks. So I made it as concise as possible and nice and organized as possible for you all to see. So for the Arts and Culture CAT, they focused on action items 3.2 and 3.3. I think there were some other action items as well, but I didn't they were submitted today and I didn't have time to include them in this chart. And also if you want to see what the action item actually is, you can see the plan on the Near Eastside QOL.org. And you can download the plan or just look at it here to see what the action item actually is. So for 3.2, they were at 50% completion, and 3.3, they were 25% completion. And I based these categories in engage community and partners, assess and plan, gather resources, implement, and completed based on the categories actually in the plan. Just so that people can get a visual instead of just putting percentage points of kind of what that means. Just because an action item is at 50% or is that on 50% here doesn't mean it's not at 60%. It just hasn't reached that next level of implementation yet. And also I want to say to all of the community action teams, because all the time when I talk to them, they're always like, oh, we're not doing enough. It's so slow, like whatever. It's not. These things take a lot of time. And even if a community action team indicates that they're at 50% in Q1 and they indicate 50% in quarter two, it doesn't mean there hasn't been any progress. So I just like to keep that in mind for future benchmarking reports. Yeah, and so that's arts and culture. For equity engagement, and they have 8 members. Teams can have up to 15 members per year. So for equity engagement, they have 9 members, and they focused on 3 action items, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. They were all at 50% at the gathering resources stage. Are there any questions about this slide or anything I just said? Excellent. Then I'll move on. Okay, so health, wellness, and family strengthening, they have 13 members, so they're very close to reaching their capacity. They focused on action items 5.10 and 6.3. There is a mention of another action item in a lower section, which I'll get to, and I will say that even though I know that some of the action teams and some of the lead agencies are doing a lot more work than what is captured in these surveys, I will not add anything from my knowledge. I only include what is included in the responses for consistency and ethics reasons. So even if I know that your agency is doing education, if you don't say you're doing education, I'm not going to include it. So they're at 50% for both of their action items. They did engage implementation partners and supporting partners, Westminster Neighborhood Services and Gleaners. They collaborated with the Arts and Culture CAT, which if you saw, the Arts and Culture CAT did not indicate that they had any collaboration with another CAT. So there's a little bit of a reporting discrepancy, but I think that's a bit normal. So they're working on action item 2.3, planning on hosting a neighborhood dance party in conjunction with the arts and culture team for July or August. So something we may have to look forward to later in the summer. We will continue to work with them as we plan and may need neighborhood assets to help coordinate. For example, DJ, speaker space at 10th and Hamilton, etc. And then for their wins, our CAT has doubled in size. We're still working on promoting our CAT to neighbors and hope to have more neighborhood representation in the future. So they got a lot of stuff going on. I've sat in on at least one of their meetings and they're on a roll. Are there any questions or comments?
Excuse me, Rainey?
Yes.
Just a question. Do we have representatives from each of these CATs here at the meeting now?
We should. I had 50 people register, and and they included members from each of the CATs. Whether they're actually here right now is another story.
I was wondering if instead of you're reading the statistics off the slides, once you get to a slide and that representative is here, if we could hear from them as to the progress they're making.
We'll actually talk about that during the breakout sessions, and they can talk about their progress and tell you what actually is behind the data, if that's okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me, or at the moment I don't remember seeing it except briefly on one of your slides. But are these breakout sessions going to be for each of the groups, or are you going to have each of the groups speaking to all of us?
It's for each of the groups, and we'll have report out sessions afterwards. So each of the groups will basically present to everybody.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, keep on going. So the safety CAT, I have to say, should win the award for the most ambitious and probably the most represented in this summit. I think all of their members signed up or registered for the event, so like mini clap for them. But all of their action items in the plan have had some kind of engagement. So at the bottom here of the chart, you'll see all other action items are at least at that first stage. And then on 1.1, they have 50%, 1.4, they have 25%, 1.5, 25, 2.5, 50, and 3.1, 75%. So they've been very active. I know that earlier this year, they were meeting once a week, and then they've scaled back a little bit, but they're doing a lot of work. Not to shame anybody else. I'm just saying. The second page, yeah, they have 13 members. They have a little visual here you can see. They asked me to share that. And so when to contact 911, 311, or 211. They've worked with IMPD. I think it was city county counselors. I wasn't quite sure from the survey. I don't know, Cliff, if you want to correct.
We've been talking with several city county counselors, met with, I know just a moment, I know last week, Mark Topping talked with Councilor Laren. I just had lunch with Councilor Ane. Niles Yensel and I had lunch with Allie Brown 3 weeks ago. So we're trying to get in there.
Excellent. And then also the James Waters Jr. Center as well. And then they actually gave feedback, which I had asked for. Many people don't take advantage of the feedback section, and I would definitely recommend it because that's how we make improvements. Just putting that out there. But they said would like to collaborate with other CATs as well as get more guidance on if we're even in the right ballpark. I think you are, if that helps. Would like someone from the Near Eastside Quality of Life to join our meetings so we can tell if we are progressing. And I can be at those meetings. Okay.
Honestly, we honestly thought that we were kind of behind on everything.
No. See, this is what I mean by everybody thinks they're behind. No, you're not. Things go slowly, but it's meant to be that way. I have to remind everyone that this is a 10-year plan. It'll take 10 years. Like, we have 10 years to focus on all of these, and it's about quality, not quantity. I'm not saying you're not doing quality work. I'm just saying, don't worry if it takes longer than you think on one action item. I hope that makes everyone feel better. Okay, and sustainability, or last but not least, they have 9 members. They focused on action item 3.3. They're at that first stage. I'm pretty sure they've done other work. It just wasn't captured in this survey. They've worked with Keep Indianapolis Beautiful, and they indicated their interest in participation in the pilot of a litter abatement program, which includes a behavior modification strategy, which is interesting. I would be interested to know more. And their wins, we have met monthly with agendas and action items to prioritize and discuss the items, but it's slow going. We have had 2 guest speakers join us, and I have attended a Little Flower Neighborhood Association meeting to talk about the sustainability CAT, as well as with ROW. Not quite sure what that is. Also, I have a meeting scheduled with Dan Overby with Ball State now as well. He's involved with the Thrive Plan, and we're hoping to find ways our work can intersect. I'm hoping this momentum will continue and we add to the initiatives we can complete in the next 6 months. Reconnecting our waterways. Thank you. Bethany, do you want to say a little bit more about the litter abatement program? I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, KIB has been working behind the scenes, I'd say, for the last several months and putting a plan, a design in place. They've been working with a consulting firm that focuses on that type of effort as well to get some of the expertise in-house. But it is focused on not just litter, like picking it up, but how do we stop people from littering? Why are people littering? Of course, the challenge is you can't really watch to see why people litter, because if you're watching, they probably don't litter because They know they probably shouldn't, but they are coming up with ways to do some behavior modification. I don't have more details than that just yet, Rainey, because they were still putting it together, but they do have the plan close to being ready to pilot in terms of using some of the bus lines where there are actually trash bins at the stops, so they can consistently count and see the changes. And the modification, of course, would include signage and a marketing campaign and some other things as well. I've got additional information I'd be happy to share with you that we received from KIB. We're hoping to be part of their pilot effort in terms of counting litter or observing and that type of thing, which will start in May or June was the time frame Ashley thought at the time we spoke with her.
Nice. Could you share it in the chat? Is that possible?
It's not a link.
I think you can put documents.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me
Yeah,
figure
you
that
can
out
put
while
files.
you continue on.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody don't litter.
You're right.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns about any of these, of any of this data from any of the community action teams? Does anybody from another community action team want to say anything further about their response? No questions, comments? I just know you all love data so much. Data, however you want to say it. All right, then I guess we'll go ahead and move on. Next is the lead agency benchmarking survey, and most of you know we have 5 lead agencies. That's John Bonner Neighborhood Centers, Westminster Neighborhood Services, Inglewood Community Development Corporation, Thomas Gregg Neighborhood School, and NEAR. I only received responses from 3. I did ask all of the lead agencies to provide information on all of the relevant areas, not necessarily just the areas where they are where they are points of contact for. So like, for example, NEAR maybe might have a point of contact for the housing cat. They didn't need to just include information for housing. They could include information for any area that they're working in. And I also asked them to exclude information having to do with their community action team involvement in order to avoid duplicate reporting. As I mentioned with the community action team data, I don't believe this is completely comprehensive. As I said, I didn't receive responses from at least 2 of the agencies. And I know that at least one of these agencies is doing a lot more work than is included, but there was a time constraint. But I think it's a good starting point. And I welcome additional responses from agencies that haven't responded yet for the final report. So this survey is pretty similar to the community action team survey. I will say the only differences are I didn't ask for priorities. I only asked for areas of the community action team. So this survey actually has about 121 questions, but when you actually fill out the survey, you might only see 5 or like 5 to 10 between there. There are so many like back end data that you wouldn't see because I tried to make it as easy as possible. And I also asked them to describe how their agency has addressed this action item or these action items. And yeah, besides that, it's the same as the community action team survey. Any questions about this? Great. So here we have Inglewood Community Development Corporation. As you can see, they've got a lot going on. There are 4 areas that they included: economic and workforce development, education, housing, and sustainability. And then there were several action items within each of those areas that they included. And I'll just kind of summarize a little bit. I don't need to read all of these to you. You can read on your own. Unless you need assistance, then I would gladly give you assistance. Some of it, a lot of it is working with Uplift Produce in Inglewood to scale up and hire more people from the neighborhood and train them, and also working on sustainability and social enterprises for future opportunities in those areas. That's economic and workforce development. Oh, and on doing work on East Washington Street on the PR Mallory campus. In education, they talked about Daystar childcare, which recently became NAEYC accredited, is working to get back up to pre-COVID numbers. I think we all know, like, schools, daycares, all have been affected by COVID. And they've been working with Purdue Polytechnic High School and Paramount on the PR Mallory campus. Oh, and they did mention that they have a community school coordinator on the PR Mallory campus who is working with staff and students on service and support opportunities and on strategies with several technical assistance providers. Yeah, and so for housing, they are working on 4 different multifamily developments for various populations and size of development across the Near East Side, including permanent supportive housing, and then working with other community-based organizations to serve as a target population. For sustainability, for some reason, that first one, the option wasn't shown to the respondent. There was a glitch, I guess, with the survey, which is something that happens when you have 121 questions and you have logic questions that depend on previous questions. So have to go back and figure that out. And I think the biggest one here that I saw was most exciting was that they worked with Ball State University's College of Architecture and Planning on the Solar Decathlon, which is a national competition for students designing sustainable development. And so they actually had 2 teams from Inglewood win 3rd place, and they designed single family development and elementary school design. Oh, thank you, Bethany. And so their win was, I would underscore the partnership with BSU. The opportunity for Inglewood and the Near East Side's name to be in a national competition is excellent. And 2 high-scoring teams with plans for sustainable development in the neighborhood is even better. The documentary Mallory, 120 Years in Inglewood, which if you have not seen that yet, I would suggest checking it out, premiered virtually in February. This is certainly a win and culmination of successful partnerships around the Near East Side. Finally, the expansion of Uplift Produce has been a highlight, and they continue to have produce in more and more markets around the country as close to Chicago and Evansville currently. So a lot going on. Are there any questions or comments? I see there was a comment in the chat. I did read that. I'm sorry there's so much text on this slide. Notes for next time. Great. So Westminster Neighborhood Services, they focused on health, wellness, and family strengthening in their response. I think Azaria Brown is the lead agency point of contact for the health, wellness, and family strengthening CAT. She said that she has been working on getting in contact with the mediation center, which is run by local government, and then they have started this action item 5.1. She had a volunteer group come in and pre-cut, not pre-queue, 8 food boxes. They will be assembled in June, and they've had 2 organizations say they will host the boxes. And they actually did receive grant or funding from Superior Construction for $2,000 for the food boxes. Any comments or questions? Great. And last but not least, we have NEAR. They focus on economic and workforce development, which I have on there twice for some reason. Housing. I think that was supposed to be housing. And I think I also had placemaking and infrastructure on there, but there were no action items selected, so I didn't include that in the chart. So they work a lot with businesses on the Near East Side, and they work with the daycare at Minnie Hartman, as well as the vitality of the 10th Street corridor. And they continue to meet with the city regarding Sherman Park. There's a lot of development that's going to be going on over there. And market small businesses via social media and then your indie guide newsletter and website. And I definitely recommend that that guide. If you are subscribed to the Near East Side newsletter that we send out every other week, I do include a link to that guide in there each month. And then John Franklin Hay, who was in this meeting, is the point of contact for the Housing Cat. So they were working on equitable strategies regarding marketing the sales of near homes and developing 80% and lower home ownership. And they're working on affordable rentals at Temple Square as well, and continue to work on the land trust, which is a huge project. And then they have grant or funding resource from INHPB. I don't have an amount for that.
Yep.
Do you have an amount for that, John or Susan?
I don't, but just we had a CAT meeting last Thursday. We're still looking for members from various neighborhoods and happy to welcome anyone to be a part of that. Please feel free to contact me, John at nearindy.org. We're still forming the group. We're looking for critical mass. We have 6 participants right now, looking for about double that. That would really help us to move forward with the very robust challenges of the quality of life plan for housing.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions about this? Okay, great.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hi. John, can anyone from, can I put this out to our neighbors that you would like people on the housing task force?
You're on mute, John.
Yeah, absolutely, Rebecca.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I had someone last week at the meeting say they put it out onto their neighborhood association saying NESCO is creating, a housing task force, blah, blah, blah. And I said, this isn't NESCO. This is the quality of life. This is the quality of life plan, community action team for housing. So just when you put it out there, it's not NESCO, which is, NESCO is fine and wonderful, but this is quality of life plan. So FYI.
Thank you.
Awesome. And so the last thing in this section, and I want to cover this really quickly before we go into our break. I want to give you a 5-minute break. So my question is there any information that you would like to see to convey the success or the progress of the Near East Side Quality of Life Plan that is not represented in this data? So are there questions that you would have asked or things that you would have wished to see in this information? And maybe just take a minute to think about it, and you can either put something in the chat or talk. Or maybe it's perfect and I did an excellent job.
You are doing an excellent job, Rainey. But I also have, I wonder if it would be helpful to share when something has worked or not worked, what that was. How did it come about? Was it because somebody reached out personally? Was it because there was an introduction from somebody else who knew the person? Was it because I mean, I'm not sure, but just maybe a little bit around how the wins came to be. Was it because you just focused on that one thing for a solid month straight and you didn't talk about anything else? Was it serendipitous? Things just fell into place? But in other words, just maybe sharing some of the ways that things did work that then maybe other CAT teams might be able
That's not the
to
same
replicate.
house. You know what I'm saying? But
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The how, maybe.
And then from Jim, I have best practices, which is a good one too. I'm taking notes, so your feedback is very important. Does anybody else have an idea or something they would like to see? Going once. All right, that's great. Well, that ends the session on the benchmarking surveys. I will give you a 5-minute break. Please be back at 6:46. Stretch your legs, have a drink of water, whatever you need to do in 5 minutes. And I'll see you back here at 6:46.
Okay. 5-minute break.
All right, it is 6:46. I hope everyone has returned from their oh so short break. Let's see. We are going to go ahead and start the community action team breakout session portion of the summit. And I've created two kind of general prompts for tonight just to keep it a little more relaxed. But I will say one of them is much more important than the other. So the first question that I want you to discuss in your breakout session is not necessarily a question, it's more just a general informal discussion. So like get to know each other, have informal conversation about what's going on in the neighborhood, talk about what the cat has been working on and hopes to work on, or talk about a current topic or event. It's up to you. Your group can decide. And spend about 5 to 10 minutes on that. And then the really important topic that I want us to discuss is how can we engage our neighbors from underrepresented communities? For example, Black and Indigenous and people of color, immigrants, neighbors experiencing homelessness, renters, children, etc., through the lens of our community action team in an equitable and inclusive way. So for example, the arts and culture CAT, I'll use them as an example. Maybe I have a series of like workshops, like maybe once a month where I get all of the kids in the neighborhood together to do some kind of art project, making it as accessible as possible to them. But having this consistent like routine of, hey, we're gonna do something this week, we're gonna have fun with our friends and make art. But that's just one example. So, and then I have a couple of sub questions. What tools or resources does your group have to achieve this goal? So what assets do you have already? And will you need any assistance? What kind and from whom? And that could be like monetary, that could be maybe you need volunteers, something like that. And then what challenges or barriers are there to achieving this goal? So those are the big questions, and that's really what I want us to focus on during these community breakout sessions. I'll give you until 7:20, and I'll be popping in and out of the community action teams just to check in and see if anybody needs anything. But I'll go ahead and open the rooms.
Rainey, can you put those second set of questions into the chat just so we have them while we're in the rooms?
Yes, after I put you onto your rooms, I will put the questions in the chat.
Thanks.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
This is my first time in attending.
Okay.
So do I just pick a room or?
So some people, because they're already members of community action teams, are already assigned to rooms, but I will give you the option of selecting your own room.
Thank you.
Yes. So
Do you want me to select now?
is that on, did it pop up on your screen?
I'm in the same boat, actually.
Really? I assigned you to a room.
Oh, did you? Let me see.
Oh, Ryan, sorry, I thought it was Ross.
Rooms
Okay.
up. I don't see rooms up yet, Rainey.
Okay. Once I think maybe because I assigned people, it might not let me do that. So if you can just put in the chat which room that you want to be in, I will move you there. I think housing needs some people if you want to join the housing cab. The sad thing is you can't even try this out before the actual thing.
I don't see a list of them, but I'm fine with any group, really.
So there's arts and culture, economic and workforce development, education, equity engagement, health, wellness and family strengthening, housing, placemaking and infrastructure, safety and sustainability.
Housing sounds like a good one.
Great.
I would like safety and sustainability.
So those are two separate.
I would like sustainability.
Okay.
I like litter.
Okay. Marguerite, you should be in safety.
And I should be in safety as well, but I don't know. I need to be assigned, I guess. This is,
Oh. Danny?
Yes, I'm looking for, is it an engagement?
Equity and engagement?
There was another one you mentioned, I thought. Let's see.
safety. I was asking about safety.
Safety.
Shirley, I assigned you to safety, did it not?
Okay, I just don't know how to get there.
Likewise.
Did it pop up on your screen?
It's
My-
not popped up. You can join.
Okay, now I
You should
see
have-
something.
Shirley, you should have a pop up on your screen to invite you to the breakout room. And, okay, I need to.
Rainey, it's impossible to make me a co-host so I can float around.
Sure. There you go.
Beautiful.
Marcia, are you there? Interesting. Oh, okay. Poor Ross. All right. People should be coming back in.
Marg, you almost got your topic out. You almost got it out.
I was done. I was
It was the
done.
buy-in. She
I
was
was
she was
done.
getting there. It was the buy-in.
I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. Basically, I mean, that's the thing. David Wilkins is going to help us do that. He's working with violence interrupters. And what we hope to do is maybe kind of like catch on to their coattails, participate in some events, as well as just, walking door to door in some of our hardest hit neighborhoods and let people know, hey, there are solutions to some of your problems.
The dog agrees.
Sorry.
I'm glad we have consensus. All right, everyone should be back. I hope you all enjoyed the breakout sessions. So it's time to put some people in the hot seat. We'll go in alphabetical order. And I apologize to arts and culture, but you start with A. So does anybody from the arts and culture room want to share what they discussed?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Joanna Nixon, and I am part of the Arts and Culture Community Action Team. And Chris Smith, who is another fellow team member, we and I were in the Zoom room together. So wanted to share a couple of brief updates about what we were discussing and kind of what we're focused on. We as a team are focused on, I would say, two key areas, and I'll maybe deep dive into those a little bit more, but the two key areas of our work have really been centered on helping kind of our Near East Side artists and creatives understand kind of the business side of art. So how do we help remove barriers that are preventing artists from thriving as creatives? And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're focused on there. The second is, and this came out very clearly in a lot of other community action teams, was around how do we create more opportunities for youth? And so we're having a lot of conversations at the community action team level about how we create opportunities and experiences for young people on the Near East Side to have access to art, to experience art, and to have regular art programming. And so that's another area where we are focusing our attention. Some specific things that we actually are working on. One includes we are in the process of inventorying the physical spaces on the Near East Side where artists can show and sell their work. Oftentimes we think about art spaces as being traditional art galleries, but there are a lot of untraditional spaces on the Near East Side, such as restaurants and coffee shops and places of worships where artists can show and sell their work. And so we want to make sure that we as a CAT team can help be a bridge between artists who want to show their work and venues who want to actually show work in their spaces. So that's something we're currently working on. The second thing that we're also kicking around a little bit is the creation of a digital or a print publication that highlights and showcases the depth of the creative and artistic talent on the Near East Side. We're focused on, with that publication, potentially doing artist spotlights and interviews, having a directory of artists who offer different goods or services, whether that be photography or visual art or graphic design or music. Essentially, how do, again, we create opportunities to let everybody in the community know the wonderful talent that's on the Near East Side and creating some interesting connections. So that's a project that is in the early stages of development. But again, we just want to, we've identified in our work more than 150 artists and creatives who call the Near East Side home. And we want to make sure that they're thriving as artists in our neighborhoods, but also that so the rest of the community knows that they're there and that they can take advantage of all the wonder creative talents that they have. As far as how we intend to engage underrepresented audiences, again, I think this theme that keeps coming up, as I mentioned earlier, is around youth specifically. So about 25% of the population on the Near East Side are individuals under 18. And so we have an immense opportunity to be able to provide engaging and dynamic programming, either after school, on weekends. And so that's where we really feel like we can have a niche as it relates to arts and culture. So I'll pause there, but that was a quick overview of what we're working on.
Thanks, Joanna. That sounds really exciting. I would love to see more art around. I always like to stop and take pictures of the street art. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there someone from Economic and Workforce Development that would share?
Sure, I can. So I think we maybe ought to touch base with you, Rainey, because I don't know that the CAT has actually been meeting for this group. So our CAT chair was not at the meeting this evening. So we talked a little bit about just what the three of us who were there knew. And I think I think we were trying to kind of figure out maybe what some next steps might be in terms of figuring out how we engage folks or what we might engage folks around. I think, yeah, in terms of assistance, maybe just checking with you in terms of kind of maybe how we should approach it. I think this group, the Economic and Workforce Development group, has maybe been a little bit harder to get residents involved in. Just knowing that a lot of the kind of proposed action items are very kind of programmatic within organizations and maybe things that are kind of already underway. So figuring out how we can do more outreach about those things, but also talked a little bit around, more specifically, some of the challenges that restaurants are facing right now in terms of being able to find employees. I think they're really struggling. And so if there's ways to connect with some of the workforce development programs at Bonner or Edna Martin or Second Helpings or some veteran programs, the Yes summer employment program, things like that, that might be able to help some of the small businesses within the community. So yeah, just exploring some high level topics, but not really like actively moving forward on a lot at this point, I don't think. And Susan and Tony, if I missed anything, please chime in.
No, I think that was kind of the gist of it.
Okay. Education, Ross.
Hi, everybody. Ross Pippin here from Thomas Gregg Neighborhood School. The education CAT definitely is looking for members. And so if you know anybody in your organization or neighbors who are interested, please let us know. We did get together, those of us in our meeting, and discussed ways that we can do some outreach to kind of energize the group. We know that our schools have been under a lot of pressure with the COVID and state testing going on. So attendance was really down tonight, but we have a positive outlook. And we think that if we do some outreach to some of our other organizations, that we could get some new members and some new energy. So not too much to discuss really, other than continued outreach.
Yeah, and I will add that we did talk a little bit about, working with Shepherd Community Center, and we talked about working with maybe like churches in the area who have a lot of members from underrepresented groups. But there's also challenges with COVID because we can't necessarily go and meet them where they're at physically. So yeah. Equity and engagement.
It's Valerie. You want me to go, or do you want to go ahead?
No, you go ahead. You got the note, so.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
We discussed it though.
Yeah, so we did have some questions. And so Rainey, if there's an opportunity, we might just even email these to you. But I think we're having a little bit of, we have some lack of clarity around like direction and what our leadership looks like, because the person who is our chair wasn't here tonight. And we're not exactly sure what their level of engagement is, but we want the work to continue. So we're wondering kind of how to ensure that happens. One main thing that we wanted to just make sure that everyone knows about, though, is like the purpose of our community action team. And so we have met several times and kind of refined that purpose as being able to partner with the other community action teams to ensure equity in the implementation of all of your action items and priorities in your section. And so we still have some we're still in the process of building the infrastructure and procedures to make that happen. But we want you all to know that you have full permission. We would love to be involved in building equitable procedures and ensuring equity in all of your community action teams. So that's why we're here. And we would love to be involved in your work if that feels, if that partnership feels helpful to you. Miss Valerie, also feel free to jump in with anything else, but I think that was the main thing that felt relevant to the whole group. Cool.
All right. Thank you. Health, wellness, and family strengthening.
Hi, yeah, so we kind of went over what the group has been doing so far. Westminster has gotten some funding and has been building the little pantries that kind of go and the community just stocks them. We have got one location set up so far. We've been working on finding locations thanks to the wonderful people at Thomas Gregg. We have found they're going to get one. And then we're just reaching out to other places, trying to distribute them fairly through the community so they're not located all just in one spot. We also, we've been working on a neighborhood dance party to try and get people moving in the community. We have it scheduled for July 10th. So far, it's going to be, we're trying to decide the format of it, but it's going to be on 10th Street. It's going to be super fun. Everybody's invited. And so we've been kind of discussing, do we want to have vendors there, with maybe organizations talking, just make it like a community event and have it so that, kids can come, adults can come, seniors can come, make it just for everybody. Making sure that the neighborhood as a whole is aware of what's happening and not just people who happen to be on a newsletter list. So we kind of talked about how to engage underrepresented communities, because it's kind of a struggle, because the people that we want to reach for this group aren't necessarily, they're living in crisis. They're not necessarily the people that are going to come to a summit. They're not necessarily going to be able to commit to a monthly meeting. And so we talked about maybe to break that barrier, is to host a community meal once a month where people can come, and instead of being come to a focus group, it's, come to this community meal, talk about the neighborhood. Let's just get together, create connections, create a place where people can be vulnerable enough to speak about what it is that they want, what it is that they need. And then another barrier that we are facing is a language barrier. So finding more people who can speak Spanish and English to help translate, because the community that is becoming largely Spanish speaking, and we want them to be able to have a say in what's going on in the neighborhood. That's kind of all I got.
Thank you, Lindsay. I have to be honest, I asked this question because this is something that I struggle with. And I assume that many other groups are also struggling with this question. And so I felt that this was a good place to kind of bounce ideas off of each other, to kind of see how we can overcome this challenge. So it's good to hear. It's good to hear, one, that I'm not the only one, and it's also good to hear what other ideas everybody else has. So the housing cap.
Yeah, so Kristen and Ryan and I had a conversation. We basically were talking mostly about the challenge of maintaining affordability in housing across the Near East Side. and the tools and mechanisms that are in place for that. We also, and which includes the creation of a community land trust, which would make affordable housing, any scattered site affordable housing or multifamily affordable housing permanently affordable, rather than just what typically happens with a 5-year affordability period. And we'll talk more about that in the future, but that's one of the big challenges. And that creates the opportunity for continued income diversity and cultural diversity across the Near East Side, regardless of the neighborhood. We also talked about the importance of homeowner repair initiatives that are provided through Inglewood CDC and through INHP, the Indianapolis Neighborhood Housing Partnership. And we mostly talked about those two challenges before we got onto anything else. So I would say that the Community Action Team on housing is, again, still at a formative stage. We'll have a meeting again in May. Anyone that's interested in participating, let us know or point anybody in our direction.
Thank you, John. Alyssa, did you want to talk about placemaking and infrastructure? Or should I? Okay.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I mean, same as a couple of the other groups, we're definitely looking for members. I was the only person here tonight, and so I got to join the education group and chat with them, and appreciated a couple ideas from them. Yeah, we're also in those formative stages. We've met once or twice, and are trying to meet again and sort of decide what our first focus areas are of the objectives from the plan, and then get those going. I think there's a great opportunity for collaboration, and appreciated hearing other ideas from the other cats. You know, like with the dance party, I think we would love to talk about how we can give some perspective on that and be a part of that, and anything that is focused on, you know, how our neighbors engage with the places they live. We would love to work with other cats on that.
Thank you. Safety.
I'm going to let Marguerite talk about her topic in just a second, but I will say one of the biggest problems we have with focusing on underrepresented communities with safety is the perception that we are a policing organization, or the policing committee, and it's been a little hard to recruit people that are just not, how do I say this, just very lily white, and we want to have it more representative of our neighborhood. And if anybody wants to help us do this, I would treasure the help, because Safety Cat, it needs to be more representative of the neighborhood we're in. That said, Marguerite has some very good news that she's been working on that is engaging our underrepresented communities. And if she'd like to talk about it, I'll pass it on to her. Maybe.
I missed the first part of the entire meeting here, so I didn't know if Cliff had already made the announcement about this, but we just put together a grant, and hopefully we'll be able to get some money one way or the other to be able to produce a directory of local neighborhood services for the East Side that's particularly directed toward people who do not have internet service. It was discovered that IPS students on the East Side have only 50% of them have, you know, at that time, internet service. So it makes it difficult for kids to learn. It makes it difficult for people to access city services and to report safety problems in their neighborhood. So we want to be able to get that out there. Actually, it would be like kind of a yellow pages, kind of a hard copy directory, but in print big enough so people my age and older can actually read stuff and be able to make phone calls. It will not have a single web address in it. But what we want to do is, as part and parcel of that project, half of it really is delivering the directories into our neighborhoods. So we'll be working with violence interrupters and various groups who are going out into neighborhoods, asking people, do you feel safe in your home? What would help make you feel safer in your home? What do you need to make your home safe? And we would also welcome the opportunity from the other cats for their participation in such an opportunity to be able to, you know, really talk to people who live residents on the east side who are in some of our hardest hit, you know, low economic, most underserved parts of our neighborhoods. And also we'd love to be apprised of other events and things that you're having coming up so that we can then distribute those directories there when they get published and become available.
Thank you, Marguerite. Sounds like the field is fertile for collaboration. I hope everyone is taking notes. And last but not least, sustainability.
Thanks, Rainey. You know, it's funny, my first name and last name begin with B. I'm so not used to being at the end of the alphabet when it comes to these kind of things. It's odd. Anyway, 3 of us talked in the breakout group, Abigail and Rebecca and I. And Rebecca, please jump in at any time, but Rebecca is actually the president of the Emerson Heights Neighborhood Association. One of the things that we talked about when we were talking about litter is how important the role modeling is. Rebecca has started an effort in her neighborhood where they are just at the beginning of the year started cleaning up, picking up litter around the bus stop and a couple of the streets close by. And in that 4 months have seen the amount of litter that needs to be picked up really decrease. The old, it's easier to keep a neighborhood litter free. It's kind of like it's easier to keep your house picked up if you keep your house picked up. Same kind of idea. So we talked about that some, and the role modeling is a big part of that. And then when we talked about how to make sure we're supporting people who are impacted the most by not having sustainable practices or programs or things like that in place. I shared just a story that I had done a few months ago. I don't know everybody on my block still. I've been here for a couple years. So when we had the snow 2 snows ago, I planted succulents in some Goodwill mugs that had been thrifted, wrote up a little note, took my little red sled and knocked on neighbors' doors. Not everybody likes to answer their door anymore, but when you're standing out there with a mug and like the silliest grin I could put on my face, people will answer their door, if nothing else, to find out who's the weird person on my step. The point is, I think for all of us, some of this is could come down to engaging, which is different than outreach, right? Engaging with our neighbors and starting those relationships. I know a lot more about 4 or 5 neighbors, especially some who work nights, they're teenagers, they're cat, I mean, a lot of things. And it also gave us something in common because now neighbors can say, I haven't killed the plant yet, I still have the plant growing. And it gives us a way to have a conversation that is easy. So as Rainey was saying, this is a 10-year program. It takes time to develop those relationships with neighbors. That got us then thinking about the old welcome wagon idea, where people did knock on doors or take brownies or something. During COVID times, I think the reason people appreciated it so much is because they felt seen. so many of us are only seen on Zoom panels these days, but knocking on a door and then standing 6 feet back with the mask on, right? Yep, you can still do it. And we then started brainstorming, maybe grants can be had for helping to fund those succulents or whatever is authentic to you, coloring books, a cup of tea, I don't know, a magnet, something like that. But you could also then invite people to take the next block, take the next 3 houses down and slowly expand that. You get to a point where you know something about them, you know what they need. You also feel more comfortable inviting them to be a part of something. So I don't think it's an overnight, I mean, I know for me, it's not an overnight fix. I can't begin to know what all of my neighbors need or don't have unless I get to know them. So that knocking on doors, which is not something everybody is comfortable with, but I put on my big girl pants and took my sled with me and it worked. So that was our big takeaway. Rebecca or Abigail, would you add anything to that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, listening to you, Bethany, I came up with an idea. I was thinking of printing up a little survey and taking it around to our neighbors with something tied up, or just engaging them and say, hey, how can we as Emerson Heights better serve you? What do you like about your neighborhood? Crime. Ask a few key questions. Have my executive committee on my board do this with me. And so we take all the streets and they're covered, and inviting people to our neighborhood meeting, inviting their input. It's all about asking. People, oftentimes, you can't engage them unless you ask. Oftentimes they feel honored to be asked. And oftentimes people whose voices aren't heard welcome that opportunity to know it's a safe place to engage.
Yep. Get to know our neighbors. I think that was everything. Abigail, anything?
Nope, that sounded great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody. That was the meat of the summit. And now we'll shift into the neighbor wins time. So if you want to think a minute, or maybe you are really excited and you have something very exciting to share, you can go ahead and put whatever, did you do something exciting the first quarter? Did you get married? Did you grow a garden? I use that in the social media. Just what's your good news? You can share it in the chat, or you can say it out loud. But feel free.
I have something for the Little Flower neighborhood. We did this last year, but last year we bought some plant starts, so like some tomatoes and I don't know, eggplant, whatever it was. And we did the same this year, so we had a couple $100s to spend, and we bought some, I think, tomatoes, chard, a few other vegetables that we are passing out to free to neighbors. So we have a little Google form they can sign up for, and it's first come, first serve. And so it's pretty popular last year, and we're going to do it again this year. And we just got those plants picked up, or about to, I think. So and I think what prompted this is that somebody in our neighborhood built some small raised beds that he gave out free to neighbors. So that's what prompted that.
Awesome. Everybody planted, it seems. Bethany says, the native plants I planted in my entire front yard last summer made it through the winter and are now blooming. Yay. And Jim said, planted sunflowers in yard. Not sure if I did it correctly, but am anxiously awaiting some signs of growth. So you don't have to have planted a garden. It could be anything. Bought my first house. Yay! Homeowner.
Not about me personally, but you know me, I always have to tout the businesses on the Near East Side. I call them my businesses because I feel very connected to them. Gomez Barbecue opened up this week. Please go visit Gomez Barbecue. He's open, I think every day but Monday. I think Monday, 7 to 1, 7 a.m. to 1 o'clock. You can get coffee. He has an espresso machine making fun coffee, and 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock barbecue. Brookside Burrito Food Truck. If you haven't heard about that, it's out of Brookside Church. It's a social enterprise. If you're within 2 miles of Brookside Church, they will deliver for a minimum purchase of $6. The burritos are wonderful and affordable. Stomping Grounds next to Can, that's Martha Lotta's business. She has a lot of great plants, cut flowers on Fridays, gifts. Her daughter Scout has a pick of the week for kid stuff. It's so cute. Futuro Pizza has been open for a couple of months, but Futuro Pizza on Cruz Street behind Angie's List campus, the old Angie's List. Heath Outdoor is going to have a kind of plant market on Saturdays in May. Look for that online. It'll be in the Near Indy Guide, which I hope to get out tomorrow. And coming soon in a few months, Side Door Bagel is going to be at 10th and Dorman. And I hope I'm not missing. Oh, and there's one other one. DYC Fitness is going to be opening on Michigan, about Michigan and State. And they're having a grand opening May 1st. It's kind of a private workout studio. So that's kind of exciting. I hope I'm not missing anybody, but things are happening, and always support our existing businesses.
Awesome. And then there's a bunch in the chat. Arabella Home Store opened this spring.
Yes.
I got a tour of the building right before they moved in, so it's cool to see the difference. Teaching my 15-year-old daughter to drive, that's exciting, slightly terrifying. I remember when I got onto the interstate for the first time. Woo. Office of Public Health and Safety is holding a resource fair at Willard Park on May 5th, 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. We will be sending out, be sending that out on our social media. Little Flower should be mailing out a printed newsletter to everyone for the first time in our neighborhood within the next month or so. Is the first one in about 10 years. And then Jim posted the Near Indy Guide sign up for the email. Does anybody have any fun news?
I don't have news, but I have a question for Susan.
Okay.
As we begin to think about a quote unquote welcome wagon concept to pilot in some of the neighborhoods, we were thinking about reaching out to businesses. Would you be interested in not maybe joining the community, but if this idea is brought to fruition, to help us figure out, doesn't have to be a whole meal, or it could be a coupon or something like that.
Good. I'd be happy to help with that.
Oh, thank you.
And we have in the past, it's not always perfect, but we have tried to do a print version of the Near Indy Guide. Again, not perfect, but at least maybe a piece of paper that tells them to sign up for the newsletter or the Near Indy Guide website. But yeah, I'd be happy to provide that connection to restaurants and businesses.
Anybody else like to share?
I have an additional question for either you, Rainey, or possibly John Hay, or someone else who might be with Englewood. And that is, do we have anywhere the most recent number of households in the Nesco area, and then preferably that broken down by neighborhood, and also with the standard demographics thereof? I take the silence to mean that there is not, that information is not available or currently compiled. The Savvy information only has it by census tract. So I was looking for something a little more northeast side specific.
Abrielle, did you have?
Savvy does have information by communities, so you are able to pull community profiles. I don't know if it addresses the particular questions you have, but there is a near East Side community profile that you can try to pull from.
Okay, because I'm just looking at their website and I see it by census tract. I haven't seen it by neighborhood community yet.
Yeah, I believe it shows up as Nesco community or near East Side.
It's kind of hard to navigate that website though if you don't. It's like a specific subset of Savvy's website. I'm not sure like what the specific name is.
Valerie says Black Vegan Fest, July 24th at 10 East Arts Hub.
Tomorrow you can hook up with Black Leaf Vegan, and they're going to be selling food outside of Gordon's Milkshakes on Mass Ave tomorrow night from 7 to 10.
First Friday's going to be not this Friday, but next Friday. I keep thinking it's Friday, but it's next Friday. 10,000 Words will be open. They're at about 10th and I want to say Tacoma. Hoi Polloi is in Clifford Corners. They're having a show, and of course CCIC is having a show. So there are 3 opportunities to do First Friday on the Near East Side.
And I just posted to everybody the upcoming Community Emergency Response Team schedule. And if you want to get safe, get ready for disasters or really anything that can happen to threaten your family and in your home and in your community, please take a look at that. It is free. It does prepare you for really just about any disaster, and allows you to feel safer. The training takes place at the IMPD East Station in their community room, and it's this June. It's going to start on the June 18th through the 20th. It's like a weekend long kind of thing, but you'll learn first aid. You'll learn how to prepare your home in case of an emergency. You'll find out that you actually have a lot of things on hand. You just need to kind of get them together and maybe get a few other things. And by just being prepared, then you'll be ready and you'll be empowered.
Thank you. So with that, I want to wrap us up. I do have some last minute announcements. Let's see. Okay. I ask you all to keep an eye out on your email inboxes for a feedback survey, as well as the resources that were shared during the summit. I will send those out as well. So if you did not get something, don't worry, I will send it to you. The benchmarking report will be posted on our website and sent out via social media and our newsletter. So also keep an eye out, as well as the recording of this summit. And then also, just make a note that our next summit will be on July 29th, which is also a Thursday, from 6 to 8 p.m. Might have a hybrid Zoom and in-person summit that time, but we'll have to see with time. And I think that's all. I want to say thank you all to joining us this evening. I know it's really nice outside and you could be doing better, like doing a ton of other things, but we really appreciate your involvement, especially me, because this work wouldn't be done without you. My information is there on the screen if you'd like to contact me. It's rgrant@jbncenters.org. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out anytime. So yeah, with that, I would like to say, I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I look forward to working with you all on the quality of life plan.
Bye, everyone.
Why is it not letting me?